Ethiopia, a country of breathtaking beauty, landscapes that change from high plateaus to thick forests to broad rivers. Here, paleontologists discovered Lucy, mother of humanity, an adventurous Australopithecus that left the safety of the trees to walk the earth 3 million years ago. But while only the bones of prehistoric hunters remain, Ethiopia's ancient farmers left a legacy that is still alive today. Ethiopia is a gold mine of genetic variety. For thousands of years, primitive farmers planted, harvested, selected and refined the seed base that nourishes humanity. Wheat, sesame, barley, coffee, banana, onion, all have their roots in Ethiopia. In the genetic wealth of just one seed lies the knowledge, the culture, the lives of thousands of generations. As with much of what is commonly known as the Third World, Ethiopia was not always a poor country. The impoverishment of the country can be traced to its deforestation. Westerly winds that dropped their rains across the forested highlands have, in the past few years, passed silently over new farmlands. There are few trees to hold the little water that falls. The earth is parched, and the people suffer. It is difficult to forget the famine of 1985. 1 million people died of hunger. In their desperation, Ethiopian farmers even ate the seeds they needed for planting. The indigenous cereals of the area risked extinction. Getu is an Ethiopian agronomist working for the survival of these seeds and his people. Through Seeds of Survival, an internationally sponsored program, Hailu and his colleagues search for agricultural solutions to many of the country's problems.
When I was a child, I remember this Sierra mountain to be covered with forest. As you see now, that area is being completely taken over by cultivation. It is very much amazing for myself in the last 30 years to come and see this area being completely deforested. I used to know this place being completely covered with forest. It was very hard even to pass through afoot. They harvest the forest and they forget to plant. And this is a very paradoxical issue as regarding the forest of Ethiopia. Famine in Ethiopia, particularly the ones that happened in 1975-76, is the result of weather calamity. The weather happened to change. It didn't rain for consecutive 2 years. Therefore, farmer didn't have enough reserve to maintain themselves during the course of these 2 years. When we had the drought, of course, this has come as a surprise both to the farmers and again to outside world, because Ethiopia, before that time, was self-contained. It never had such alarming drought. Everybody rushed exotic material to the country, and this, as it was not having the right adaptability and the resistance for local diseases, these have resulted into disastrous crop failure.
After the droughts, international agricultural aid finally arrived. But it wasn't as effective as expected. The local grains were replaced with laboratory breeds, genetically improved. Local farmers quickly realized, though, that the new seeds were less productive in the harsh climate of the highlands. They required the abundant use of pesticides and fertilizers, neither of which starving Ethiopians could afford.
This is a fertilizer bag for urea, and this is again a fertilizer bag for DAP. This field have applied 2 bags of this, or 2 bags of 50 kilos of DAP and 1 bag of 50 kilo of urea. It has costed 225 birr. And this is, of course, not been fertilized, and it is grown without a fertilizer. And what we see from the stand here, this doesn't look so much different than the one being fertilized here.
And these fertilizers are oftentimes very, very expensive, and farmers cannot afford them. But really what we are trying to do here with the land races is that we want to give the farmers the option to use these land races wherever the improved varieties do not do very well, or whenever fertilizers are not available in the country. Land races are crop populations that have not been bred as varieties. These are cultivars that have existed with the farmers since time immemorial. For example, if we take the durum wheat in Ethiopia, they have been here for thousands of years, and they have been adapted to the conditions here in Ethiopia. So naturally, the farmers are quite familiar with these varieties. So the farmers can grow them under low input conditions without any fertilizer. ከፍተኛ ምርት እያገኘን ነው ባሁኑ። ለዚህ ምንም የሚከፋን ነገር የለም። በበኩላችን ከዚህ የበለጠ ምርት ወይንም ለማግኘትና ሁሉም እኛን አይቶ እንዲሰራ ወይንም እኛ የሰራነው ስራ ሁሉም ለማግኘት እንዲችል እና እቅዳችን ወደፊት ያለውን ዓላማ አያይዘን ከኛ የበለጠ ገበሬው ደግሞ ሌላ ገበሬ እንዲጠቀም ነው እኛ ፍላጎታችን።
agricultural school and completed my bachelor agricultural study in 1958. Then went for further training to Europe and America. I terminated my contract from the government service and went to plant genetic resource for private agencies giving a technical assistance to plant genetic resource. I like working for Seed of Survival, who is now operating under the name of Unitarian Service Committee of Canada in Ethiopia as an agronomist. And we have started with 5 grams of seed that we acquired from our own wheat breeder, Dr. Tasfaye Tasama, who fortunately made some 260 composites of landrace cultivars to distribute to 2,500 small farmers the seed. These small farmers are collaborating with us at this particular time, multiplying feed of ours and using it for themselves and selling whatever excess they have.
Collaboration between scientists and the farming communities forms the cornerstone at Seeds of Survival. Without the advice and input of local farmers, agronomists risk developing sterile theories. Likewise, without information from botanical and genetic research, Ethiopia would be hard-pressed to climb back from its devastating impoverishment. Seeds of Survival works closely with one of the world's most prestigious seed banks, the Biodiversity Institute in Addis Ababa, home to 53,000 species of seed.
When the gene bank was established some 18, 19 years ago, the threat to genetic erosion was very high, and the international community said that we have to establish a network of gene banks, and Ethiopia was given top priority because of its genetic diversity. And the major objectives of the center when it was established was to collect and conserve genetic materials which are found in Ethiopia. And recently we have established a new division called the Community Biodiversity Development Conservation Program, and its objective will be to document the indigenous knowledge of the Ethiopian farmers. In this box are samples to be kept for short-term purpose. So we keep them in this room for a period of 5 to 6 years. Within these 5 to 6 years, we take them to the field for multiplication. This represents the genetic diversity which is found in Ethiopia. They are varied in color, in shape, and they have also different uses. Some are used for making local beer, for example, some for making bread, injera, and some are bird resistance, disease resistance. So they have different traits. The Russian explorer Nikolai Ivanovich Vavilov was in Ethiopia in 1925, and he did exploration and collection of many cultivated crops. Scientists who came from Europe, America have testified that more than 20 crops have their origin in Ethiopia.
Ethiopia's dictatorship fell in 1991, but the country has numerous challenges to meet, many of them still a result of colonial administration. Agrarian reform has yet to be addressed. Transportation is slow, and the roads are in disrepair. Across the high plains, in some places over 3,000 meters or 10,000 feet in height, irrigation is non-existent. Unsafe drinking water is responsible for 80% of the country's diseases. But the population continues to grow. 60 million people, mostly concentrated in the area around the capital of Addis Ababa. Solutions to the poverty that still afflicts the country do exist. The needs and development of Ethiopia requires a willingness on the part of the scientific community to recognize and foster traditional agricultural methods and culture. One example of this is teff.
This is Aerograstus teff. Is one of the most staple food of Ethiopia. It is now consumed in most parts of Ethiopia more than any other cereal crop. It is used for injera, which is highly popular for an Ethiopian diet. It is indigenous crop to Ethiopia. It is consumed mostly in the highland and central highland of Ethiopia. But this habit of teff consumption is expanding rapidly, and the teff market remained very good. It fetched, until this very day, it fetched a very good price. Therefore, farmers keep on growing teff.
In many cases, traditional farmers developed innovative solutions for their daily needs.
This is a local store that has been traditionally made out of twigs, mud and cow dung. With this type of storage, they'll be able to store up to 20 quintals of grain. The advantage of this store, as you see, is not a fixture. So they move it from place to place as they may need it. That's one advantage. The other advantage is, of course, when they clean the inside, then they tip it completely over and they get all the old grain. All of this is what is being prepared from our landrace wheat material. This local bread is being brought to people to eat while they're working in the field. Here what you see is also porridge made out of wheat. Here a cereal A very popular breakfast of Ethiopians is called locally kinche. And it is made out of wheat too. This is made out of emmer wheat. It's called tamaj, it is barley. And what this lady was telling me, that this is the local materials which they prefer to prepare this kind of dishes. Because they are so sentimentally attached to the flavor. And they say it is nourishing. We are not only making bread, we are also making drinks and alcohols out of wheat. This is what is being locally made as grappa. It is like Ethiopian vodka. Yes, it is with quite enough a kick. Can't have more. Too strong.
In this dry corner of Africa, with its enormous exports of coffee and bananas, poverty and starvation are still present. Clearing vast tracts of forest destabilizes not just weather patterns, but the physical and cultural survival of the people that know and depend upon the land. From the traditional wisdom of mankind's first farmers comes the daily bread of the third millennium. Conserving and protecting biological diversity will nourish the seeds of our future.